now we know the CIA, there's evidence the CIA was involved in election interference in the 2020 campaign. So the Biden corruption just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's interesting, we've had these new documents come out that make the Burisma scandal actually seem legit, right? In terms of legitimate activities by the Biden administration, by the Biden family, relatively speaking. You know, because the Burisma, you know, was a company, right? And they hired Hunter Biden to be on their board of directors, and they paid him money. And one might argue there was a business reason for doing so, however corrupt and disreputable it was, right? But here we have these documents coming out as a result of whistleblowers pointing them out to James Comer, who runs the Oversight and Accountability Committee in the House of Representatives. And he's been able to subpoena bank records that show that Burisma, as I said, is relatively speaking, you know, kind of normal corruption. You've got outrageous corruption going on with multiple members of the Biden family, according to new records uncovered by Comer, by going after these banking records of key Biden family members. Now, let me get to the section where I want to talk about that. There are two reports I want to get to. The first one is this report out of Comey. And here is the summary of the material, and I think it's worth highlighting because, you know, I live it here, right? We all live it at Judicial Watch, so we know all these details. I read the reports, I see what folks are saying about it, but I know you don't necessarily have the time to do that. And I know specifically the media won't give you the details of Biden corruption because they're in the tank for him and they're trying to help him maintain his hold on power by suppressing information that could harm his campaign, just like they did with the Hunter laptop. This is the latest iteration of election interference, where core corruption issues are, and significant evidence of criminal corruption by the Biden family, implicating him, even Joe himself, are hidden by the big media. So this is why I think it's important we get into some detail here. And this is what Comer's committee found. They found a lack of transparency regarding the Biden family business deals. That's a charitable way of putting it. When President Biden ran as a presidential candidate, he assured the American people his family received no money from China. President Biden recently claimed the committee bank records regarding his family's receipt of funds from China are, quote, not true, unquote. The White House refuses to correct Biden's dishonest statements. The lack of transparency surrounding the Biden family's foreign business deals raises serious national security concern. So when they say lack of transparency, they're saying Joe Biden is lying. The committee has reviewed thousands of bank records via subpoenas. I think there were at least 4 banks subpoenaed. The complicated network of Biden family and associate companies created a web of over associates companies. The family members and their business associates created a web of over 20 companies. Most were limited liability companies formed during Joe Biden's vice presidency. So the suggestion is they were set up to benefit and maximize his power as vice president, or maximize personal profits from his power as vice president. The Biden family received millions of dollars from foreign sources. Bank records show the Biden family, their business associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign national companies. The committee has identified payments to Biden family members from foreign companies while Joe Biden served as vice president and after he left public office. They used business associates companies to receive the foreign funds. Despite creating many companies after Vice President Biden took office, the Biden family used business associates companies to receive millions of dollars from foreign companies. So that suggests concealment and money laundering. As he goes on to describe, after foreign companies sent money to business associates companies, the Biden family received incremental payments over time to different bank accounts. These complicated financial transactions appear to conceal the source of the funds and reduce the conspicuousness, I think I said that right, of the total amounts made into the Biden bank accounts. So essentially, cash went into one account, and they took it out bit by bit and moved it into other accounts. Chinese nationals hid the source of the money. Chinese nationals and companies with significant ties to China, Chinese intelligence and the Chinese Communist Party hid the source of the funds by layering domestic limited liability companies. So layering means, 2 or 3 layers, right? The number of Biden family members is just incredible that are involved in this. As the committee traces additional financial transactions, the committee continues to identify new Biden family members who may have benefited from the foreign companies. And I think they've listed 9, including like a granddaughter of Joe's, Hunter's ex-wife, Haley Biden, Beau's girlfriend, Beau's widow, Hunter's erstwhile girlfriend at one point, his brother, his wife, I think one of their or 2 of their kids, at least 1 grandkid. So they're using children to launder money. That's how decrepit this racketeering operation is. So when you look at the various charts, and I think I tweeted out a good chart that show the ties to the Chinese, it's going to knock your socks off. And there's no way that the FBI could not know about this if they were doing a competent investigation of Hunter Biden over the last 5 years. Remember, Hunter's been under investigation for at least 5 years by the FBI, and they're still agonizing over whether to indict him. And you can bet this is something they don't want to have investigated. Indeed, we have more information that just came out a few weeks ago that I think Jordan and Chuck Grassley highlighted. Jim Jordan in the House, Chuck Grassley, senator from Iowa, And they reported that they had a whistleblower, a quite credible one, tell them that there was an FBI form that delineated an accusation by someone, so you don't have a lot of the details, that Joe Biden did something as vice president in exchange for foreign cash. So just outright bribery. And what Congress wants to know is what was done with that allegation. Was it investigated? Was it found wanting? Or, was it found credible and nothing was done about it? Or was it just buried? And so they asked for information from the FBI, and they've been given the runaround. And you can bet that Judicial Watch will sue for the information as soon as we're able to under law. Just so you know, it takes about 3 weeks between a request, typically, and because the states have, the government agencies have about 21 days typically to respond, sometimes a little bit more. So it takes a few weeks to a month before we can file a lawsuit, assuming we don't get an appropriate response under law. So we'll be on it as soon as we're able. So you've got this tremendous information of Biden family racketeering. Now, of course, Joe, they haven't gotten Joe's bank records. And I don't know if he's been asked why he hasn't gotten Joe's bank records, but I would suggest that ought to be next on the list if it already isn't. Certainly there's enough here to begin an impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden. Don't you agree? And I'd like to know why it hasn't started. And I don't think the Republicans have a good excuse not to have done that, given everything that's going on. In addition, we have new information about election interference and the efforts by the deep state to try to help Joe Biden during the election while hurting Donald Trump. And the information concerns the efforts by Anthony Blinken, who is now Secretary of State, and other folks in the Clinton campaign, but a Freudian slip, I guess, right? The Biden campaign. maybe I should just call it the Biden, Obama, Clinton campaign. I mean, it's just all the same people, just different heads. So Jim Jordan, so last week has been a big week for government reports, and I got to hand it to Jordan and Comer. They don't sit on the information when they find it. They get it out. I mean, Comer got these records as soon as he was able to kind of go through them and understand them and ensure that he had everything he was likely to get in the short or medium term. He produced the information to the American people. He didn't sit on it for a year or two. Same thing goes with Jim Jordan. They're producing information about what they're finding to the American people in a timely way, which is a marked difference than previous Republican investigations. Now, Jordan's been investigating the deep state, I call it deep state, but essentially it was the Biden operation, using these 51 folks, most of whom had security clearances, to try to falsely distract with false accusations that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russia disinformation. And in fact, it wasn't. And their statement that was seemingly taken as neutral seemingly put out as neutral, wasn't neutral. It was generated as a result of Anthony Blinken and the Biden campaign. And so we've talked about that a little bit. But that's come out is that the CIA may have been directly involved in pushing out this election interference. According to what Jim Jordan has uncovered in this new report, he says the committees have evidence that an employee affiliated with the CIA may have assisted in obtaining signatories for the statement. One signer of the statement, former CIA analyst David Cariens, I think it's C-A-R-I-E-N-S, disclosed to the committees that a CIA employee affiliated with the agency's pre-publication classification review board informed him of the existence of the statement and asked if he would sign it. The committees have requested additional materials from the CIA, which has ignored the request to date. Now, and also on top of that, I don't know if it's in this report, I think it's in this report, the CIA also accelerated the approval of the letter that dissembled on the Hunter Biden laptop. So this Mike Morell, who was a Democrat operative, former acting CIA chief at one point, implicated in Benghazi, he had asked for a quick turnaround by this review board, and I think he got it. Now, those of us who've had experiences, I know Judicial Watch has had experiences in dealing with these review boards. They're usually a bureaucratic morass, especially on sensitive political issues. So in addition to accelerating, it looks like for political reasons, this letter to try to help Joe Biden, they were also soliciting signatures. So you had the CIA directly involved in our election processes and election debates. Because as Jordan highlights, the public statements by 51 former intelligence officials was a political operation to help elect Vice President Biden in the 2020 presidential election. The Biden campaign took active measures to discredit the allegations about Hunter Biden by exploiting the national security credentials of the former intelligence officials. Blinken's outreach to Morell, he had called Mike Morell basically to get him on board here, was the impetus for the public statement. The Biden campaign coordinated dissemination of the statement to members of the media, and as I said, they have information that the CIA may have helped move this all along. So we have the CIA, again, involved in, we already know the CIA has been involved in censorship to help Biden, censorship to help the deep state push the vaccines and things like that and anything else that got in their way through the Twitter files. But now we know the CIA, there's evidence the CIA was involved in election interference in the 2020 campaign. And I know there's this debate. Well, you know, is this debate about voter fraud in the 2020 campaign and whether that had an impact? The other debate about the election in 2020 is whether now has to be is the involvement of our national security agencies and people who have security clearances to help suppress information about a candidate. Joe Biden, and make another candidate look bad, Donald Trump. That's election interference. So that's why there's this debate about the 2020 election, and it isn't going to go away. And so these 51 members, these 51 folks, they need to be investigated. In the least, I would look into the next honest president taking away all their security clearances. I think Trump wanted to do that against John Brennan, who was one of the signers here. And I think they backed off because of the litigation that might ensue. But there's got to be a way of checking this. There's got to be consequences for abusing the trust you have from the American people, a national security clearance, and then use the fact you have a security clearance and this expertise. And when you have a security clearance, the presumption is you still have access to secret information, right? So you know better. You know secrets that inform your public statements on national security matters. Here, they pretended they had all of this expertise when in fact they were just acting as Biden fronts, Biden campaign fronts. And messing with our elections and abusing their security clearances to do so. So don't you think they ought to have those security clearances removed? I think so. I think so for sure. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.